Hi, my name is Stephanie. I have 5 children. I have a former stepdaughter that I still have living with me, and I have 4 boys between the ages of 11 and 5. All of my children have had some kind of challenges that they've needed some type of services for, whether it be struggling with depression, anger management. We've had family loss and family issues that we've had to deal with.
I'm Chase, I'm 11 years old, and I was in group at Valley View, and my group teacher was Miss Sherry, and she's helped me because some of the problems that I've had during school kind of just went away.
My name's Jared, I'm 8, and I go to group with Miss Sherry, and help me learn to make better decisions.
I have had problems with anger because my brothers are always like fighting, and then I get into it and get really mad at them, and like the other day I got mad and I hit Jared.
If I wouldn't have had the services available at school, I wouldn't have found the time. I mean, trying to raise 5 children, work full time. Not many counseling places have evening appointments, and when you're thinking of trying to keep a household paid for and still be able to make your bills, you're like, okay, well, I have to miss work during the day to bring them to counseling, but then I miss work, I miss pay, and then that's one less bill that gets paid. So having that available at the school, gave me one less thing to worry about, knowing that somebody was there for my kids when I couldn't be.
Sherry Barmash with Lee Carlson Center for Mental Health and Well-Being. I'm a group facilitator with the clinic, been with them for 22 years, working with youth in the schools. A few of the students that I worked with, in one of the schools in particular, Columbia Heights, were 2 boys, Chase and Jared. The youngest, he had had some issues at school the previous year with many visits to the principal's office, had close to being expelled, several suspensions, just really a difficult time in school.
The reason I got rid was because I was saying bad words and being mean to people.
Started himself in group and meeting on a weekly basis, and by the following year hadn't visited the principals even once. We worked quite a bit on anger management, self-control, stress management with the family, his older brother as well. Just worked on some lifelong skills that the kids can take with them from school into their home and use in their daily life.
In group, the other kids kind of had a similar problem. Like one of these kids, his mom and dad had died, and another one can't really see his dad because one day he sees him and then the next day he just ran off and hasn't seen him. Because we all had similar problems, we could all work it all out and find the solution.
My name is Melissa. I'm a therapist at Lee Carlson Center, and I've been working with teenagers for 15 years. I have one girl in particular that really is just, I'm so proud of her. She started with me in 6th grade. The referral came from the school counselor. The concerns were sadness, withdrawn, grades, really smart girl, but grades were dropping. And not any behavioral problems, but more just kind of isolating and quiet, and teachers could tell that something was wrong. So I started working with her. Her name is Faith, and 6th grade, we started off slow. She grew up in a very chaotic childhood. Her mother was in and out of her life, struggling with her own addictions, and so Faith really had to learn to be independent at a very young age. Her dad wasn't really part of her life until much later. So when I started working with her, she had just moved in with her father because her mom wasn't stable, and her dad felt like he could do a good job bringing some stability to her life. So we started working, and she was very quiet and had trust issues and didn't really know what she thought about me. and the whole process. And so for about the first year, she was quiet. She would just listen and really take it all in. And you know, at about 7th grade, she started to open herself up a bit and to really start talking about her childhood and the feelings that she had of abandonment and not trusting anybody, and she slowly started to kind of trust the whole group process, and I believe she started to trust me. And we started to work on self-esteem, and we started to work on really finding ways for her to stabilize her own mood and to not personalize the things that had happened to her in childhood, so that she could continue to blossom and do well in school and move forward. And right about the end of her middle school year, her mother came back into her life again, and she was very excited, and things had changed with her mom. She felt very excited, and things had changed with Faith. Faith was stronger. She had better skills of communicating, of just, you know, not personalizing her mom's issues and taking it personal into her own life. And so she got reconnected with her mother, and a short while after that, her mother was murdered, and Faith reeled backwards again for quite a while, dealing with the grief and loss of her mom. And so she was able to, through her work with me, I believe, really process her grief and her life and everything in her, everybody in her life who had hurt her, and she figured herself out, and she blossomed, and she's an amazing artist, and she just really is going someplace in life. And I feel like had I not been in the school to help her, you know, I'm not sure what would have happened. You know, I'm not sure who she would have had to have talked to. So I feel thankful every day that my job is such that I can come in and help these kids.
2 years ago, my sister's mom died, and kind of helped her and all of us kind of figure it out and figure out what to do. And how, like, we could be there for our sister and help her out.
I believe that the services were a huge benefit for Faith, starting out from the first year, the adjustment of coming from living with her mom and the issues that she had from there, and the adjustment of living with her father and I. I was still married to her father at the time. There was a big adjustment from there and dealing with being in a new family environment, you know, having somebody to talk to about not feeling like she belonged or feeling out of place, and not having any friends. And it helped her have a place to talk to in group. She started to make the friends that she had, which helped her, you know, over the years. Within the first year, there was a big change in her, and she had group for 6 years up until she graduated from high school. And now she's doing great. She's working full time. She's got a really good head on her shoulder. I'm very, very proud of her and the stuff that she's accomplished. I mean, she's become a very strong, very independent young woman.
My name is Anita, and I have mental illness. I was diagnosed in 1994 with recurrent major depression and anxiety. There was some suicides on my dad's side of the family, an uncle and a cousin, and also I witnessed my dad try to commit suicide when I was 3. And as far as the environment, I don't think I had the best environment for a kid when I was growing up. There was domestic violence in my house, and my dad was an alcoholic, and he was mentally abusive towards me, and he beat up my mom a lot. And I didn't have a sibling till I was 5, so I was kind of alone, and I just remember them fighting, and I was worried about my mom, if she would be okay, and it was just really scary.
I belong to a tribe led by the light.
I'm Diedrich Weiss, and I have bipolar disorder and was very suicidal. And it's what I call kind of the sort of Walking Dead, where I was contemplating suicide more than daily. It was a sort of it became a refuge.
The only kind of like the best bright spot for me when I was a kid was my grandma, because I always felt safe with her, and I loved to be with her. I just felt safe and happy with her. But when I was 7 years old, we moved away to another state, and it was another really sad time in my life. And I was like 7 years old, and I just remember these periods of just being really, really sad and pretending I was somebody else, or just pretending I wasn't there. So I just went on my way, and in high school I started drinking early and gambling early, kind of to hide, I guess, my feelings or try to deal with them. I also had a lot of confusion about my sexuality, and again, I didn't have anybody to talk to. Nobody back in those days talked about anything like that.
I ended up trying to take my life by overdosing on this drug. I was in a coma for 48 hours, and fortunately, my brother found me in my dorm room. It was during Thanksgiving weekend. He asked security to break down the door, and they did. And there's a window right here where, okay, here's a young man who's been hospitalized prior for suicidal thoughts. He's got a diagnosis, and here he's trying to take his life. I'm going to hope that today things would have been handled a little differently, and one of them been a little longer than a day of a hospital stay, because once my physical symptoms were taken care of, I was in psych ward for about 24 hours, and I was back at Hamlin, actually, in school. And not a lot was looked into.
In my middle 30s, I was kind of grieving over somebody I really loved who had died, and the grief turned into another really, really dark spell, and I couldn't sleep for like 6 months, and I was kind of had a lot of pressure at work, and I ended up kind of having a breakdown, and I tried to commit suicide. And that was when I was in the psychiatric ward at the hospital, and that's when I found out that I had depression and anxiety.
Until age 30, when a woman that my father had been a partner with for many years had shared with me, this was early in their relationship, I should say, but she says she saw behavior in me that reminded her of her son, who has bipolar, and that it might be a good idea for me to talk to a psychiatrist and put that on the radar. And that was the first time I'd ever considered bipolar. I didn't know what it was, so I saw a doctor, and he affirmed all of that and helped me fill in how the symptoms, what it looks like in relationship to what I'd experienced. And I still didn't feel convinced, but I wanted to believe, because I very much badly wanted at least some kind of a home collection of well, I'll just say having a diagnosis, a title. I was willing to have a label. I thought it'd be really helpful, and certainly medication that would help me. So we tried lithium, and that's when I knew I had bipolar for certain, because the lithium was extremely effective. And that's really, for me, that was day one of my recovery. I'm 41 years old today. No, it's not my birthday, but I am 41. And so that's 11 years. And a lot has happened in those 11 years, but getting that diagnosis and the proper medication was definitely day one, truly, of my recovery.
I don't really dwell on the past, really. I've had a lot of therapy, you know, so I've learned to, you know, deal with that kind of stuff, and I don't really think about it that often. But sometimes I think that maybe, I think the depression was even worse when I was little, because I felt really alone, really scared, really trapped, and I didn't have anybody to talk to. And now, you know, I'm older and I can take meds, and I have a therapist I can see. So I guess it's better nowadays. But I still wonder, maybe my life would have been different had I had therapy when I was like 5 instead of 35.
Wounds to scars, wounds to scars, wounds to scars, wounds to scars.
My name is Linda, and I have a daughter who's 14 years old who was recently diagnosed with psychosis, which has now been officially diagnosed as schizophrenia. On top of her diagnosis for her mental health is also a 9-year seizure disorder that has been unsuccessfully treated. My daughter Kayla actually had her first seizure when she was 3 years old. Unfortunately, we did not know that she was experiencing a seizure. She would repeat a phrase that would say, "I have to go potty, I have to go potty." And we would think as a 3-year-old that she just had to go to the bathroom. That kind of escalated, and we noticed that she started getting kind of a fugue state after this happened. So we took her to our primary doctor, who immediately diagnosed her with seizures. We were in to see a neurologist within a week and have been under the care of several neurologists and epileptologists over the past 9 years. In 2009, Kayla was bright and happy girl, starting out the year on top of the world, turning 13, and we started to notice at the end of the summer that something was changing in her. She started to experience somewhat of a paranoia, and she began to sleep for long periods of times, and we were unable to rouse her. She would sleep for 20 hours a day, and on top of this, she was still continuing to experience seizures. So I went to the Mayo Clinic website and looked up the symptoms that she was experiencing, and we diagnosed her ourselves as being in some type of psychosis. With Dr. Aoun's help and the care of a new epileptologist, we were able to admit her into a hospital and get the seizures and the medications a little more under control. And after we were there for 2 weeks, she still continued to experience the psychosis. So we decided that we would take Kayla out of the hospital and care for her at home with our neurologist and with Dr. Aoun's psychiatric care. And that is what we have been doing for the last 9 months. We personally feel that with the knowledge we did receive from the internet, we were able to figure out that Kayla had psychosis, and we got some doctor to give us attention. It was a little too late. I think that the first indication of something happened, we should have really brought her in to see someone, whether it was a psychiatrist or a neurologist, and explain the symptoms and really tell them she needs to be treated, something needs to be done.
I am Dr. Suzanne Aoun. I am a child and adolescent psychiatrist. Over the years of my clinical practice, I had the opportunity to treat children with various diagnoses ranging from attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder, depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, kids with autistic disorder. I feel fortunate that I'm practicing at an age when we have different modalities of treatment that we can use to help a child along their developmental journey.
I'm Liz Martin, and I'm one of the youth pastors at Emmanuel Christian Center. I work with students ages 12 through 18. The kinds of issues that we're seeing are definitely more prevalent lately, or nowadays, I guess. We're seeing a lot of students on different kinds of depression medication. Anxiety is a very large issue. We see usually every Wednesday night there's students having anxiety attacks or whatnot in our foyers. Just this past year we've dealt with our very first followed through suicide, and students who are feeling the urges of suicide or feelings of suicide are definitely coming forward more than we've seen in the past years.
My name is Liz Chevalier. I am the youth specialist with the Fridley Police Department. You know, a lot of people have asked me, have I seen a change? And I would definitely say yes, a whole lot more mental health issues. Why? I don't know, but I continue to see, you know, the abuse, a lot of neglect, lots and lots of little ones home by themselves.
My name's Amanda Gramlich. I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker. A lot of the times children evidence mental health issues and extreme symptoms by acting out behaviors. So headbutting, striking others, throwing things, tantruming, and it varies if you've got somebody that is, you know, 5 versus 15, how that looks. So there's a wide variety of things that you'll see with a child that's experiencing a mental health crisis.
In the 22 years that I've been working with kids, I have never ever experienced a level of stress that I see with the kids right now, with school, with peer pressures, with trying to fit in, with the economy. I have never seen a foreclosure rate like this where kids truly have no idea where they're going to live, if they're going to even have their parents at home when they get home from school, or if they'll already be, you know, displaced and homeless, having to switch schools during the school year. It's at an all-time high. The stress is so difficult right now for these kids, and it's so hard to focus on schoolwork and just being a kid, and that's one of the biggest concerns I have right now is kids aren't kids. The kids are raising their parents, or raising, you know, other children in the home, and they aren't even allowed to just go out and be kids and have the fun that we did when we were kids because of the stress, because of the worries and the concerns.
My recommendation to every parent is not to dismiss symptoms that are severe enough, that are impairing the functioning of their child at home, at school, and particularly relationship with their peers. And to value the input that a teacher provides the parents.
What research has shown is that if you identify and address a child's mental health issue, the likelihood of a better outcome and less chance of developing a serious mental health issue farther down the road occurs. What we do know as far as our adult clients are concerned is that often they've experienced mental health issues for a long time.
It's so important to see kids when they're young. We truly have saved several lives with the kids that we see, where kids have said, we wouldn't be here today if it weren't for you, your agency, and getting help in the schools. These are kids that normally wouldn't always have the time or the resources to seek outside help, and being that we're able to see them during the school day, we can get to that immediate intervention. We see kids as young as kindergartners that are facing foreclosures, have moved several times during the year, have incarceration in with families, just at a complete loss of where to go and what to do with their lives. It just feels so hopeless, as if there isn't anybody that even cares. So our connection is to let them know that somebody does care, and how they can get some help, get some resources, and most importantly, talk through the fear and the emotions and the crisis that's going on in their lives, fast forward their lives for them, and help them see that there is hope, there's a better path, you know, ahead for them.
Having me as a therapist working with these kids in the school gives kids a chance to really become healthy adults. They don't have healthy parents that are bringing them to the sessions, bringing them into therapy to get help, to get support, to have assessments done, to you know, go on medication if they've got severe issues with depression or anxiety. These kids really have nobody, and then they come to school and the teachers are there to teach. They're not there to parent, and they're not there to help them with anxiety and things like that. So having people in the school that are trained to deal with some of the mental health stuff really gives kids a chance to recognize that even though they're coming from dysfunctional settings, that they can grow up and really become healthy adults and start over with a family again on their own that's healthy, with healthy coping skills, you know, healthier thinking patterns, and just really hope for living, hope for life, hope for happiness.
Your team. This world is asking you for so much more than you know. Intelligent and strong, but living on this has now become outgrown. You are love and you are sweet, playing like a little girl in the street, running to the finish line so you can breathe. Susan, you've been trying on a thicker skin.